Amadi ran back to his compound and assembled his domestic staff. I give you 5 minutes to pack some food and clothes for Ikemefunna. I am taking him out of this village immediately. Go, he thundered. They all ran into their different huts to carry out his order. Enemuma heard him from her hut as she was taking a nap with Adeolisa beside her. She managed to drag herself out, still feeling sleepy. What's the noise about, my husband? She asked, yawning. The king has ordered that Ikemefunna be chased into the evil forest, he replied her. Pacing up and down, Enemuma's head widened immediately. She wasn't sure of what she heard her husband say. What did you say? She asked in shock. The Igwe just ordered that our 10-year-old Ikemefunna, an innocent child, be chased into the evil forest, he replied. According to the king, the chief priest said our son is an evil child, and his presence is the reason for the calamities that has befallen Archie. He further explained, I need to go get him out of here before the palace guards get here, he added. Enemuma sat on the ground and began to cry. This can't be happening. The gods couldn't have delayed me for 15 years only to end up giving me an evil child. She wailed even louder. This is not the time to cry, but to act, woman. Get the workers to hasten up. We must leave immediately, Amadi told her, trying to be calm. I am going nowhere, father, Ikemefunna said as he emerged from the backyard. Walking over to them, he added, I actually would like to visit the evil forest. I want to confirm what I have heard about the place. It could be fun to be friends with the spirits. What do you think, mother? He asked, trying to sound funny. His parents stared at him in disbelief. Sometimes I wonder if you are a child or an adult, Amadi thought to himself. While he was still arguing with his parents, one of the domestic staff came to announce that the bag was ready. Bring it to me at once, Amadi told her. Facing Ikemefunna, he said, I am your father, and you will do exactly as I say. I am taking you out of this village right now, he said, and grabbed Ikemefunna by the wrist. He collected the bag from the workers who had returned with it. As they were about to leave, 2 palace guards followed by some chiefs and few youths walked into the compound. Enemuma quickly dragged Ikemefunna into the hut and locked the door from outside. We bring you greetings from the king, one of the chiefs said. We are here to carry out the wishes of the gods of our land, he added. What stupid wishes is that? Amadi asked, sounding irritated. I am sure you know, Amadi. I am truly sorry, but the wishes of the gods must be done. Please bring out your son, answered the chief. We must send him into the evil forest for peace and tranquility to return to Archie, he added. Chief, did you just hear yourself speak? Amadi asked. How can a little boy of 10 be responsible for the calamity that has befallen us? We all know that nobody has ever entered that forest and returned alive, even if he is evil, like you said. You could have banished him from the kingdom. Why chase him into the evil forest? It still doesn't make sense to me, Amadi said, trying to fight back his tears. My son is not in the house, Enemuma quickly chips in. Will you bring him out gently, or will you want us to handle it the hard way? The chief asked. You are heartless, Ichi, Amadi said. Would you have had this same energy if Nkem was your son? Like I said earlier, I am truly sorry for everything, the chief replied. Turning to the guards, he said, search all the huts and bring Ikemefunna out. There won't be any need for searching. I am right here, Ikemefunna said as he emerged from the hut. Enemuma was shocked. She made sure she locked the door tightly. She wondered how he was able to open it without stress. Go back inside, Ikemefunna, Enemuma said, trying to shield him away. Turning to the people, she said, you will have to kill me first before you get to my son. Ikemefunna freed himself from his mother's grip and moved towards the crowd. We can go, he said. He looked at his father and mother and said, please take care of Ada. Do not worry about me. I will be fine and I will be back. Give me the bag you packed, he added, stretching his hand. Amadi handed him the bag. Enemuma began to cry uncontrollably, as if Ikemefunna was led away by the crowd. They led him to the entrance of the evil forest. Then the chief who had left the crowd spoke. Ikemefunna, son of Amadi, the great hunter, on this day, the king, chiefs, and people of Achi village hereby reject you as one of us. Go into the evil forest, for you are evil. Now go. Ikemefunna walked briskly into the evil forest. The people watched him until he was out of sight, before they all returned to their homes. 3 days after, the chief priest moved around the village, performing some rituals which he called cleansing. After the cleansing, he went to the palace and assured the king that things will return to normal again. True to his word, things gradually began to return to normal. Commercial activities began to return to Achi. Farmers began to record bountiful harvests. All the people who had been down with strange sicknesses recovered. Villagers who at first were unhappy about the chief priest's revelation began to rejoice. Some even sent him thank you gifts to the chief priest for a job well done. Every day, Enemuma would go to the entrance of the evil forest and cry, after which she would return home. She did that every day for the first 2 years before she stopped. Gradually, they began to move on. The villagers thought that the storm was over. About 5 years after Ikemefunna was rejected and sent into the evil forest by the people of Achi, there was a heavy downpour in the village. The rain started at cockcrow and lasted for the whole day. Farmers were unable to go to the farm. Traders couldn't go to the market. They were all indoors. The whole village became flooded, and for 2 days nobody could go out. Very early on the 3rd day, people began to troop out of their houses. Farmers rushed to their farms to see if the rain did any damage. Some of them returned home crying. The rain had destroyed their farmland. A lot of steel in the market collapsed. The whole village was thrown into confusion. They wondered what they had done to deserve such heavy rainfall. While the farmers who were affected were still looking for what to do to fix back their farmland, strange pests began to attack the crops of other farmers whose farms were not affected by the rain. Within 3 months, there was famine in the land due to shortage of food. Children began to grow thin due to malnutrition. The villagers began to steal from each other just to survive. Thieves broke into plenty people's huts to steal money and any valuables they could find. Farmers ran from pillar to post looking for solutions. They had a meeting and were able to come up with a solution. They cut different selected herbs from the bush, dried them up and burned them in their farmlands. Within 2 weeks, the pest disappeared and the farmers were happy. Barely a month after that, a strange sickness hit the land. Almost every home had 1 or 2 sick people showing the same symptoms. The sick ones had very itchy rashes all over their skin, and they continued to scratch their skin. It turned red and smelly. This issue was taken to the king. He appointed a chief to visit the home of all the sick people and find out what they were reacting to. From the investigation, it was discovered that they all had one similar answer. The symptoms started after they all had their baths at the Achi River. The chief priest returned to the palace and told the king about his discovery. The king quickly sent a message to the whole village. Go around the village and tell the people not to fetch water, wash or bath in Achi River, for it has been contaminated, he ordered the town crier. The town crier quickly did as he was instructed, and nobody dared go to the river again. The village medicine man was then contacted. He made some herbs from those affected to drink and bathe with for 3 days. After this was done, they all got healed. Nobody knew who contaminated the water, and they didn't bother to investigate. They just stopped going to the river. All the while, the chief priest didn't say anything. He acted like he didn't know what was going on in the village. The villagers continued to solve their problem without involving him, and he didn't care. Achi village continued to experience one misfortune after the other. The last one that broke the camel's back was another terrible sickness that took over the village. This time, King Ezedo's first son was affected. Enemuma, Ikemefunna's mother was also affected. Many other village families were infected. The infected people suddenly started noticing blood in their urine. They were taken to the medicine man, who did everything within his power but couldn't cure them. After some time, their leg began to swell, so they couldn't move or do anything. They cried out of pain every day and could not sleep at night. The king's 10-year-old son, Prince Uwabudike, had similar symptoms, and the king couldn't bear to see his son in such pain. The medicine man couldn't cure him either. The king decided to invite the chief priest for consultation. He sent his guards to invite him over to the palace. He also invited the elders to be part of the meeting. As the chief priest arrived and making consultations as usual, after he was through, he shook his head and looked straight at the king. "Igwe, are you sure you want to know the result of this consultation?" he asked the king. "Of course, that is why you are here," the king replied. "My son is sick. Many other villagers are sick as well. I need a solution. A fast one at that," he added. "Igwe, the gods are angry with you." The chief priest let out the shock of the king and the chiefs. "That throne is not yours, but your younger brother's. Ezego is supposed to be the one on the throne, not you. Ezedo," he told them. "Everything will be fine with Amioma the moment Ezedo ascends the throne," he added. "What do you mean by that?" the second in command, Onowu, asked the chief priest, sounding irritated. "No second son of the king has ever ascended the throne in Achi. Why should this one be different?" he further asked. "You asked me to consult the gods, and I have done as you asked. I don't have answer to your questions. I am sorry, I do not have answer to them," the chief priest replied. Turning to the king, he said, "Do the needful and free Achi from more calamities." He packed his things and left the palace. The king sat glued to his seat, unable to utter a word. The chief left, one after the other, in silence. They were heartbroken. King Ezedo has been a good king, just like his father. They didn't understand why the gods would reject him. Later that night, King Ezedo told his wife about what the chief priest said, but she told him not to leave the throne. The news about the chief priest's revelation spread around the kingdom. While some people didn't like the idea, others insisted that the king should vacate the throne and free the land from more danger. 2 weeks after, a man and a woman who had been down with the illness died. Their families became angry. They marched to the palace and demanded the immediate dethronement of the king, saying he was responsible for the death of their loved ones. After they left the palace, they went to the house of the youth leader and explained things to him. Ogadi, the youth leader, assembled other youths and had a meeting with them. They agreed to march to the palace the next day to force the king out of the palace, since he has refused to step down on his own. The next day, the youths gathered at the village square, getting ready to go to the palace. "Ikemefunna is back," someone shouted from the opposite direction. They all turned to see who it was. It was Nwodu, the popular drunkard of the village. They all hissed and continued with their meeting, thinking he was drunk as usual. But when he got close to them, he insisted that Ikenna had just emerged from the evil forest. They noticed he wasn't smelling of alcohol, which meant that he wasn't drunk. He ran towards the evil forest entrance to confirm what he said. True to his word, Ikemefunna stood at the entrance of the evil forest, looking around. He was carrying the animal skin he left with about 7 years back, and he had some palm fronds in his mouth. They recognized him with his tribal mark, which some youths took to their heels, thinking it was a ghost, and others stood back to see what he was up to. After standing for a while, Ikemefunna began to move into the village, while the youths and some adults who had gathered followed behind him. Ikemefunna continued to walk without talking to anyone. The people followed him, began to whisper among themselves. "We are still trying to solve our problem." Now Ikenna suddenly surfaced. "Don't you think this is more problem for us?" someone asked. "I don't think so. Something tells me that this is the solution to our problem. I have always had a strong feeling that Ikemefunna was wrongly accused. Another person said, how can he be the solution when his birth brought calamity to our land many years ago? They continued to argue among themselves as they followed him closely. Ikemefunna made his way to his father's compound and went straight under a shed where his mother laid, with her legs swollen and emaciating an offensive odor. Enemoma had mixed feelings. She wasn't too sure if she should be happy or scared to see her son, so she just stared at him. Ikemefunna put down his bag and removed the palm frond from his mouth. He brought out a gourd and a wooden spoon from the bag. He poured out a liquid substance from the calabash to the spoon and stretched his hand to his mother's mouth without saying a word to her or anyone. Enemoma wasn't sure whether she should receive it or not. She just shot a glance at Amadi, her husband, who nodded in agreement, urging her to take it. He is our son, he will not harm you, he told her. Enemoma opened her mouth and Ikemefunna poured the substance into her mouth. He put the calabash down, back into his bag and returned the palm fronds to his mouth. Barely 30 seconds after Enemoma received the substance, she began to vomit a greenish substance filled with so many maggots. Amadi quickly held his wife to prevent her from falling as she was vomiting so hard. Her swollen leg began to go down instantly. Ikemefunna packed his bag and left as more people followed him, including Amadi. Clean up this mess, he ordered the only domestic worker who he had left. Others left immediately. Enemoma became ill. Take care of your mother, I'll be back, he told Adaolisa as he dashed after his son. Next, Ikemefunna went to the palace and walked straight into the hut where the prince lay, as though someone had informed him. Ifeoma, the queen, and one of the palace guard went in with him to see what he was up to. He gave the liquid substance to the little boy, and like his mother, Nwodike began to vomit greenish substance filled with maggots. His swollen legs began to go down immediately. Queen Ifeoma ran out in shock when she saw what had happened. My son is healed. Ikemefunna has healed my son, she shouted. Excitement filled the compound. Ikemefunna made his way to the exit of the palace, but he was greeted with a large crowd waiting with their sick loved ones. Please heal us, please help us, Ikemefunna, they chanted. The king ordered one of the guards to get the stool for Ikemefunna. Ikemefunna received the stool and sat down. He began to give all the sick ones one spoonful of the liquid substance. He signaled them to take them away immediately. They received it because he knew they were going to vomit and didn't want them to mess up the palace. All the while, he didn't say a word to anyone. He didn't eat anything either. People kept taking their sick loved ones to him, and he gave all of them the liquid, and they all got healed. He was there for 3 hours. By the time he was through, only few people, including his father, were left. He packed his bag, returned the palm frond into his mouth, and got up without talking to anyone. He began to move. The people followed him. They began to sing his praise. Ikemefunna has saved our land. Ikemefunna has saved our land, they sang. As they proceeded, some more people joined them. Soon they increased in number. Ikemefunna made his way to the chief priest's compound, and the people began to wonder why he was going there. The chief priest is not sick. Why is he going to his compound? They asked each other. As soon as he entered the compound, he removed the palm frond from his mouth and spoke for the first time. Ezemo, your time is up, Ikemefunna said with a loud voice. Come out and tell the people of Archie why you decided to keep them in bondage for many years, he added. What is he talking about? What has our chief priest done? He has been the one saving all of us. While the people began to murmur, the chief priest came out with charms all over his body. You little rats, what are you doing here? Your place is in the evil forest. How did you survive all that deadly place? The chief priest asked in anger. Ezemo, you have no more power over me. I left the evil forest on my own because it wasn't my time to act. But now it is the time, Ikemefunna replied him. Now confess all your atrocities to the people of Achi, he commanded. I see you have acquired some little powers and you think you can use it on me, the chief priest fired back. You survived the evil forest, you will not survive this one, he said as he removed one of the charms he had on him and threw it at Ikemefunna. The charm hit Ikemefunna on his chest and he fell to the ground, pretending to be affected by it. The chief priest laughed hysterically and turned his back against Ikemefunna. Ikemefunna quickly sprinkled some powdery substance on the charm he threw at him. I am Ezemo, king of the spirits. No one messes with me, the chief priest bragged as he continued to laugh. Unfortunately, you have met your match today, and it is the end of the road for you, he heard Ikemefunna said from behind. He turned to look at Ikemefunna, who threw the charm back at him. Instantly, the chief priest fell to the ground and became paralyzed. No one was around to carry the chief priest to the palace. Carry him to the palace, he had some confessions to make, he told them. The man did as he said and they all returned to the palace. When they got to the palace, Ikemefunna bowed before the king and spoke. I am Ikemefunna, son of Amadi, the great hunter. I am the same Ikemefunna you sent into the evil forest 7 years ago. Before I say anything else, the chief priest has some things to tell you, he said. Facing the chief prince who was on the floor, he said, I command you to speak now. Igwe, I am sorry for everything, the chief priest began. I am responsible for all the calamity that has befallen our village in the past. Starting from the death of the king, your father, the chief priest began. I killed your father, King Ikenga the Great. To be continued.